Welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Beautiful Chaos, written by Gary Russell. It's been a long time since we talked about Gary Russell, if we've ever talked to him about him at all. If we've talked about a Gary Russell story, it has been a while in this Doctor Who Marathon series. Especially, it must have been like somewhere in like the 6th Doctor or maybe even the 5th Doctor era. But anyway, for those of you who don't know, Gary Russell, is a prominent writer and a creative force for Doctor Who in its spin-off media, such as books, comics, and audio dramas. And he has a very distinct style, shall we say, a very distinct style. His stories could literally be for any era of the show, which means that he usually writes for what we consider the core Doctors. This is an aspect fans have dubbed when, especially in novels, where you don't write for any particular Doctor in mind in terms of how you write him and his dialogue and the way he's portrayed in the story, but you actually write for like just a genuine feel for the Doctor. He's also known for being, because he's a massive Doctor Who fan, he always has recurring elements in his stories, featuring massive foes, meeting up with old allies, going to famous locations from the shows, and all that jimmer jammer. And he just likes just delving into the lore of Doctor Who, some would say, which has gotten kind of that kind of thing. I don't know what that is. In terms of what people consider him, a lot of people consider Gary Russell as a genuine writer overall, as a pretty mediocre writer, mainly because he seems to always have these two main elements to his plots, and this story is actually no exception. And before I even begin with anything, I just want to state that a lot of people, when it comes to the books and the audio dramas, ask me, is it immersive? Not that whether the story is good or not, but can you believe this story is taking place within the era of Doctor Who that it supposedly is set in? And here I'm going to say no to the Doctor, but yes in terms of the overall adventure. Yes, Gary Russell's writing style for writing simply the core Doctors is prominent here, which isn't a bad thing, I would like to state it. In fact, I personally, in terms of novel, find it much more interesting because I can now picture in my head any Doctor interacting with these moments. But you can't really do that here because the story heavily is reliant on Donna Noble and her state in the show in terms of her relationships and stuff, because this story is set in modern day Earth and features the characters of Sylvia Noble and Wilfred Mott, who appeared, of course, in the series as Donna's mother and grandfather. So that's really cool. Now, before I tackle into this, I know I keep saying that, but I need to get two things off my chest. This isn't actually the original release. This is actually a re-release from the 50th anniversary. It was originally released in 2009, I would like to believe. And then in 2013, they re-release one novel from each Doctor era. Strangely, for the 7th Doctor, it was a novelization of Remembrance of the Daleks. But apart from that, they were all original novels and mainly BBC books. I don't think they did a Virgin one, which is probably why 7th Doctor didn't get an original story, because most of his run in novel form, or at least the popular ones, are released by Virgin Media. But anyway, this is the 50th anniversary edition of Beautiful Chaos, and you all have this cover style. If some of you who might have been watching this series for a long time might remember that I also have the 4th Doctor 50th anniversary re-release, the Festivals of Death, I believe that one was called. I have talked about it on the Marathon series if you're interested in that. But also as well, I will not be tackling the epilogue and the prologue in this story, and it's obvious for obvious reasons. But for those of you who don't know about this story, the story starts off and ends with scenes set after Journey's End and The Stolen Earth, which was Donna's last appearance as a regular companion. But so the main bulk of the story is set within the canon aspect of where we're talking about it here in our narrative. However, for obvious reasons, I will not be tackling the final 2 bits of it. Not that they're chapters. Oddly enough, this book does not have chapters. They do break it down by days, but seeing as the majority of the story takes place over the course of 2 days, it's either this story does not have chapters, or this story has a handful of 4 chapters but are really, really long. Yeah, so anyway, the story starts off with the Doctor and Donna actually meeting up with Sylvia and Wilfred, who they've gone back to the anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of Donna Noble's father passing away. A quick reminder for those of you who don't know, Donna Noble's father, played by, I can't remember his name, but he was in The Runaway Bride, and he was supposed to have a regular appearance in the show in series 4. However, sadly, the actor who played him passed away before they could finish filming Partners in Crime. In fact, if you go on the internet, you can actually find a deleted scene of Donna talking to her father, but sadly he passed away during the filming of that, and it was decided that they would replace the character with Donna's grandfather, Wilfred, played by Bernard Crimmins. So there's some neat little trivia there for you, and it is a shame that happens, but this story kind of tackles with that, because this story is kind of split into not maybe 2. It's a bit more complex than just going, oh, we've got first half and second half. But there is a key difference in terms of the plot, because the first half, roughly, is the Doctor and Donna reuniting with Donna's family, discussing things out, showing their emotional beats, getting introduced to a new character, whilst things start happening around the world as something seems to be going on with this purple electricity energy source, which vaporizes a few people and then seems to hypnotize or convert people into worshipping something in some way, shape or form, and a massive sort of invasion is about to take place. But that's just all like the build up, really, so I'm not going to really talk about that because we've only got like little time on these videos. So we're just going to talk about what this story really does really well, and that is just character beats. It's a very slow burning story, I will say. It doesn't get really interesting in terms of plot until round about the halfway, or maybe even past the halfway mark. The majority of the novel is the Doctor interacting with Donna Noble and her family. So that is very good. Now, as I've stated before, the Doctor is written here as the core Doctor. There's nothing really, you can't read these. Personally, I don't read this and think David Tennant, if that makes any sense. But I still think of the Doctor, it's just something that like any Doctor would say. Nothing really hit home in terms of what the 10th Doctor does. However, we get a lot of interactions with Sylvia and Donna, because Sylvia, basically in the show, she's always had this kind of humorously sorry, my light. She always has this comedic energy of being really strict with Donna, and that kind of is part of her character. But this, we kind of break it down, and that's something which I feel like the show should have really done. That's very strange that it gets produced in this novel form, in this storyline. So that's kind of interesting, and this story does it phenomenally well. And we get this this meeting. We also start learning that Wilfred has a girlfriend, Nettie, and Nettie, she's this old lovely lady that Wilfred met in this astrology, because he's a massive astrology fan. We've seen it in the TV show that he's looking up to the skies, and Sylvia seems to not like her because he's kind of she's kind of really strict with Nettie as well, and we get introduced to Nettie, and she's just this bundle of joy for her personality, because the story around her is that she has Alzheimer's, and that she struggles to remember things, and she has these moments where she kind of zones out, and she kind of she's not in the head. That sounds really bad. She's not there, if that makes any sense. And this story does kind of deals with that. It does, because we get this horrible disease which cannot be cured, as the Doctor says. It's like, this is the second time Alzheimer's. There is no magical cure for this. There is no working around it. It only gets worse. It does not get better. And what I really, really, really love about this story is that everybody in this story is so caring. I say that. Donna and Wilf are so caring, so loving, so concerned. Even Sylvia, to a point, though we will get into her in a bit, is so caring to her. But Nettie is just this bundle of joy, and she just doesn't let anyone let her spoil the mood. She comes in and she's got these massive hats, these outlandish hats, and she's always flirting to Wilf in front of everybody, and she's just this really lovable character. In fact, some of you might even know this, but Nettie is such a popular character that Russell T Davies, and actually read this book, liked it, and a nod to this. Nettie is actually mentioned in The End of Time. This story is 100% canon, and you cannot prove otherwise. But anyway, there is also something that's happening tomorrow. Wilfred is having a party basically set out for him, because he discovered a new star. He has a complete new star in the sky, or at least it seems to have come out of nowhere, and Wilfred is the one that discovered it, and he actually gets the star named after him. It's like Mott 72.506, something like that. And the Doctor... Now, one of my favourite things about the RTD era is the relationship between the Doctor and Wilfred. And although, as I keep stating, the Doctor is written with the core Doctor in mind, that love and energy these men have for each other, that kind of the friendship that they have is burnt into this novel. It's one of the main reasons to read it, is the Doctor's relationship, Doctor and Donna's relationship to Wilfred and Nettie. And if you're a fan of Wilfred, I highly recommend you pick up this book. It is really something, and it gets you emotionally hooked in this relationship, and that Wilfred is got this whole party for him and stuff, and the family kind of go out to this expedition. However, the Doctor is obviously interested in the new star that Wilfred Mott had found, and it is a genuine star, and it is a genuine accomplishment, and the Doctor's even kind of envious, he says jokingly, but he's more interested in something that's appeared slightly a bit to the side of Wilfred's new star. Another star is seemingly out of place and is glowing a different strange colour. A star which has now been dubbed the Chaos Body, I believe it's called. Yeah, the Chaos Body. The Beautiful Chaos. And the Doctor kind of gets this feeling that he knows what it's about, but nah, there's nothing to worry about. It couldn't do any harm. It couldn't do any danger. There's no way that this entity, this creature, which I've dealt with before, can harm. Especially that there's nothing to do with astronomy that is interesting, that's happened interesting recently. Now, we're going to get into spoiler territory here. So, it is kind of a big spoiler because, like, I didn't know reading this that this was going to appear in it. I doubt that a lot of people are going to be interested in who the villain actually is, but if you still want to be surprised, if you're big into your Doctor Who lore, especially your classic stories, then this is your chance to basically turn off and read the novel. You ready? The entity that suddenly has appeared in the star, watching out over our characters, the entity that seemingly has taken over the world, places all over the world, and converting people into its mind control or killing others, is the Mandrakender. For those of you who don't know, the Mandrakender Helix is a entity, an energy source that may or may not be sentient. I'm not quite sure how it's explained. That appeared in the 4th Doctor story, The Mask of Mandrakender. A story I would like to add isn't a particularly popular one, and though I feel like it's more, Gary Russell is like, no, I have a passion about it, and I have this, I do actually enjoy this character, so I'm going to bring him into the new series. I think a lot of people, when they realise the Mandrakender is in this, are kind of like, it's just Gary Russell going, what classic monster can I bring back today in this story? Which I wouldn't be surprised if that's how that turned out. Like I said, Gary Russell has a criticism against him that he constantly does stuff like this. And it is kind of strange. Like, it could have just been any other monster, a new monster, and the story wouldn't suffer really to it. But the fact that we are dealing with a recurring monster, and not one that people are, let's be honest, too interested, means that the story is much more interested in what our main characters are doing outside the events of the main narrative flow. So, for example, like I said, maybe just over half of the narrative is the villain, the Mandrakender Hex, basically putting things together, whilst the Doctor, at the moment, realising of the events about to come, is basically just enjoying life with the nobles. Now, the story does globe hop a lot in the first half of the book, and this gives this story a global cinematic feeling. And I feel like it really works here because the Mandrakender Helix is one of these great giant beasts of Doctor Who, one of the great old ones. Actually, I don't know if he is supposed to be one of the great old ones, but it's stated here that it has existed before or during the Dark Times, a mythical history, a deep history that many centuries before life as we know it in any sort of civilization has started. So that gives this creature a very massive global feel. And so the Doctor basically slowly starts to learn that there is actually an event which he and Mandrakender can use as an energy source of sorts, where all these planets seems to be aligning. Also up in the sky, all the stars seem to be shifting and moving to form a scary face in the sky. The Mandrakender Helix come into form, and the Doctor tries to call up an old friend who we'd never seen before. He's kind of like one of those characters which is like stated there's a history, there's a past there, and so he goes to try and meet him. However, the Helix actually gets to him first and kills him, and as this Doctor has this sad moment, and he gets knocked out, and Donna gets chased around. Donna finds her way back to her home after the Doctor instructs her to escape. He'll be fine. And Donna then kind of is like thinking, it's like, what the hell did I do? What the hell have I done? And she talks about this to Wilfred, who then goes after the Doctor. And then from this point on, I don't think the Doctor and Wilfred ever leave the same scene again. They are, throughout this narrative, the same. I forgot to mention, there's a scene in the middle of part one, or at least the first half, should I say, where the Doctor meets up with these two young boys. I say young boy, one of them is an older boy, one of them is this younger boy, at this tech conference or something, this promotion thing. And this boy seems to know who the Doctor is, and the Doctor gets a message from his psychic paper saying to look after this boy, keep him safe, keep him away from the M-Tech. Now, we never actually learned how or what sent the Doctor that message. He had this psychic paper, and he had a message on the psychic paper. We never learn that, which is a huge criticism. But it's very strange. But these kids do play a bigger part in the second half of the story as they return when Donna tries to chase back to chase the Doctor and Wilfred, and these boys get in the same van as her, and there seems to be something going on, and this kid seemingly has all this information about the Mandrakender Helix and where the Doctor is, and they've got to find him and where they are. All around, all of this organisation is all building up to this hotel where this man, Dara Morgan, who has got this this AI that basically deals up with everything that he has. Madame Delphi being this host for the Mandrakender Helix, and she kind of has this really playful attitude with her. It's like, oh, wonderful news, you're all going to die. That kind of, she doesn't say that, but she kind of does have that atmosphere with her, which is this really interesting thing. It's strange though, because my memory could be playing up, but I don't think the Mandrakender really had its own sentience in that way. I remember it more like this energy source, but kind of has this push, this need, but it's not really a living thing to that regards, if that makes any sense. And so the novel, the Doctor has come up with this plan, and for the plan he needs to bring along Nettie, and all the characters are like, what? Why are we bringing Nettie into this? And Wilfred, being concerned because he knows how vulnerable she is like, you are not harming her. You will not sacrifice her for us. You will not, Doctor. It's not fair. And the Doctor does kind of try to reassure him that everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be fine. But deep down, the Doctor has this plan, this idea to defeat the Mandrakender, and it has to do with Nettie. And so the Mandrakener's henchmen basically find them all, take them to the hotel, where the Doctor's plan basically unveils as he starts spouting all this nonsense which Donna and Wilfred have no idea what he's on about. The Doctor is like, well, there's nobody here really suitable for your main host, to be your new main host. I mean, I'm incompatible at the moment because I'm a Time Lord, I can fight you off. Donna is something. Wilfred has a heart condition, which Wilf's like, hold on, no I don't, when he says that in his head. And Nettie, she's just this amazing Australia, yeah. Sorry. And our characters are like, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what's getting up here. And so the Doctor finds the way to basically release everybody out of the Mandrakener's Hex's mind control. And so the Mandrakener Hex is kind of at the loose at the moment, and the Doctor basically tells Donna and everybody to get out there. And I'm sorry, Wilfred and Nettie, I need you to stay. They'll be fine, it'll be fine. Everyone will be okay afterwards, but for now, you all need to leave apart from you two. And the Helix energy gets transported into an individual. Now, before I continue, I will state that this is a controversial ending. Some people like it, some people hate it, but it is a controversial ending. So if you are sensitive to this kind of stuff, another way to back down. It turns out that the Mandrakender Helix has taken on Nettie and using her as its host. And so it turns out, and Wilfred realises, this was the Doctor's plan overall. This was what the Doctor had in mind, to use Nettie. And Nettie is now this evil persona of the energy, and Wilfred's just like crying, he is burning, he's like, Doctor, this is horrible, this is inhumane. But the Doctor kind of just blanks him out and is just like trying to get Nettie to remember things, or the Mandrakender, shall I say, to remember things, stuff about the stars, just usual stuff. How many beans make 5? A reference to Robot. So that's a nice nod. Like, it's Gary Russell, he's got nods to probably every episode ever. So the Mandrakender Helix is like trying to remember these things, but then it starts simply struggling to remember, struggling to pick up things. It struggles, and it asks Wilfred to try and help it get the answers it wants from the Doctor's questions. And it turns out that the Doctor has used Nettie's Alzheimer's against the Mandrakender. Because of the Alzheimer's, Nettie, her disease, which breaks down all of the electric neurons and stuff, kind of infects the Mandrakender. And when it leaves its body and tries leaves her body and tries to go back to the stars and tries to find home so it can recover. It seems to forget. Essentially, the Doctor's plan is to give the Mandrakender Helix, this pure evil entity, Alzheimer's. He gave it Alzheimer's. I was trying to say Nettie gave it Alzheimer's. That's kind of messed up. Even for one of the biggest villains in the show series, well, I say the biggest villain, only appeared in one TV story, and I believe one comic as well, if I recall. And so that is that's how the story really ends. Nettie is fine, but the Doctor basically tells Donna it's Nettie is still ill. There is no cure. Wilfred, spend as much time as you can with her, because one day she will go and she will not come back. Which leaves the story on a sad note, but Nettie is so joyful about it and so happy because Sylvia, who throughout the story has kind of this grudge against her, which we slowly kind of break down. I just realised we didn't get time to talk about Sylvia in this story. God damn, this story. Sylvia kind of had this grudge against Nettie, but we quickly learn that it's because she kind of feels like everybody is kind of leaving her. Donna's now got the Doctor, Wilfred now has Nettie, and Sylvia, whose husband passed away a year ago, has no one. Or she did have her support group, but they're just all seemingly leaving or forgetting about her, and that's kind of sad, and she kind of is jealous, shall we say, for that appreciation. And she does say some kind of stuff about Nettie, which is pretty disgusting. But the story does make it clear that, you know, she doesn't mean that, what she's really saying, and that it's only just like in a burst of arrogance does she say these things. So yeah, using a character's Alzheimer's against the enemy, the Doctor willingly put Nettie's life on the line so he can use her Alzheimer's against the villain. I personally don't have too much of an issue with it. I was in tears. This is one of the few books I've ever read where I was actually breaking down hearing Wilfred, because he's really like the main connection to the story, because he's the character that we've known the longest in terms of their relationship. Just breaking down, not really understanding what's going on. It's like slowly kind of putting together. There's that brief moment where he hates the Doctor and Donna for doing this and tries to bring Nettie back to get rid of the Mandrakender Helix. That is a powerful scene. But I will say it is controversial. It is like putting it too real in that sense, because it is dealing with a real-time illness which affects a lot of elderly people in the real world. So there you go. That is Beautiful Chaos. Overall, I really had a blast. This is actually the first novel, like a proper full-on novel, not as like a short one, but a full-on novel, that I thoroughly enjoyed through most of it. The Doctor is a bit basic in this story in terms of how he's written. Like I said, he is a bit of the core Doctor. The build-up to the Mandrakender, though it's not like really distracting, because the scenes where the build-up happen are spread out through most of the first half, and the, you know, it sets up this massive globe world. The story does kind of stop because you have these big emotional moments and these big emotional scenes, and then it's like, oh, you've got to remember plot. Okay, back to what you're interested with the Doctor and Donna and stuff. So in that regard, the story doesn't work, but majority of the plot really works. Really beautiful stuff. Highly recommended by me if you haven't read it already. So there you go. That is Beautiful Chaos. So join me next time where we will be learning how all the Torchwood team got together. So I'll see you next time for Fragments. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!